Okay.
Right on. There we go.
All right. Welcome back to the Beehive Biker Podcast, episode 6, I
You're on
think.
6?
Yeah.
I've watched all of them for the record. They're good.
Oh, good.
You got a good thing started already. I've been enjoying them.
All right. Well, that's good to hear, especially for someone that's like actually listening.
Yeah.
You know, it means a lot. So I'm
Dude,
glad
it's
that
awesome.
I'm glad that you're able to come on. This is Johnathan Barker. He's come to talk today about Indian motorcycles. So he's our resident expert today.
Oh, nope. We completely falsified this. I am the guy who happens to be on an Indian, but loves motorcycles as well.
Yes.
So, but biker first and foremost, Indian rider second.
Yeah, so we just thought it'd be fun to compare and contrast. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of differences between the two brands, and so super informal, episode here, but still looking to have a lot of fun.
Yep. And that's, I think it's important to point out, it is on good fun. Like, I would hop on a Harley. If somebody gave me a Harley Davidson and was like, here, do you want it? I'd be like, of course I would want it. Like, it's a bike. Harleys are cool. Not as cool as Indians, but it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. And I'm not claiming to be an expert on Indian by any means.
That's exactly why I wanted to bring you in. You know at least something. I know at least something
there
about,
you go.
like, I wouldn't even claim to be a Harley Davidson expert. But I do love the brand, riding, everything. So it'll be a fun episode, I'm sure.
I love it.
So go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit. Sure. What's your kind of experience in riding? What have you ridden, etc.?
And that would actually be, I think that would be a good way to kind of segue how I got into Indian. Because I think the way I ended up on the Indian team was very much the way, or it's because of my biker story, my origin story, whatever you want to call it. One of the things that I've noticed you guys have said on the podcast a couple times is how it's very rare that somebody like organically starts riding. There's usually like a family member, uncle, father, brother, whoever, who gets them into it. And every time you guys say that, I'm always smiling to myself because my dad was not a biker. I don't have anybody in my family who was. I had a friend, it was just a buddy of mine, who was not a biker either. His family wasn't bikers. We just at the same time were like, dude, we should get bikes. And it was like, why? I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to ride. Do you know how to ride one? I was like, no. I was like, well, let's get bikes and move to California. So we did. When I was 22-ish, I was going to school down in Cedar City at SUU. And I had just broken up with my girlfriend that I'd been like with through all of college. So I was in a spot where I probably wasn't making like the best mental decisions. But my buddy talked to me. He was like, hey, why don't you come move out to LA? We'll buy motorcycles. We'll do the whole single thing. It'll be fun. And so I found a old Honda CB 900 that was for sale. Some guy in Magna was selling it for $1,000. So I gave him $1,000 cash.
What year was it?
It was an 81. It was older than me.
Older.
I think it probably had like 56,000 miles on it.
That's still not that bad though.
It was an old, used but well taken care of bike that, for the record, I think is a fantastic learning archetype. If you get something that's old that you can drop and nobody cares, it's already
you don't feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. Which I did when I was learning. I mean, when I bought that bike, I couldn't ride it right at the beginning because the tires weren't good on it. So I took it to a Big O to get some new tires on it. And that just goes to show how little I knew about bikes. Like now I would never take my bike to a Big O to get new tires. I would take it to a bike store, a bike shop. But at the time I was
they sell tires for bikes?
He sourced it, I guess, and put it on. So again, like I had no clue what I was doing at all. But when they gave me the keys back, they're like, cool, here's the bike. And I had watched YouTube videos on how to ride, and I knew how to drive like a manual car. So I knew what a standard transmission was. I just never applied that to bikes per se.
Right.
So I spent a good 30 minutes in the parking lot figuring it out. And then I had to get back to Cedar City because I had work that night. So I had about 30 minutes experience on the bike, and then I took it on I-15 and rode it all the way to Cedar City. And had
no permit at the time.
No permit, nothing. And like I'd done that ride before 100 times in a car, so I knew where to stop in a car for like a car's gas range. Had no clue that it's different on a motorcycle, so I didn't even make it past Fillmore. Ran out of gas on the side of the road.
Oh no!
Had to call my buddy up to come get me. So my little soiree into motorcycling was very trial and error. I had no clue what I was doing because I had nobody who was a biker that was in my circle to give me advice. But I ended up moving out to LA. I sold that bike right away because it was air cooled and it was just so hot in Los Angeles. So I sold it and bought a Honda Shadow 750 and loved that bike. I had it for years. I did from LA to Vegas, from LA to Salt Lake, from LA to Phoenix. I mean, I rode that thing all over.
There you go.
By the time I sold it, it had probably 67,000 miles on it.
What year was it?
It's a 07.
And that one you bought new?
No, I bought that one. I think it probably had around 13 or 15,000 miles on it. And thank goodness the guy who had it before me had put a Mustang seat on it. So he'd kind of made it a little better that kind of stuff. Because those were things I still didn't know, the important parts of upgrades on the bike. So I got that and I took that one all over the place. My longest ride I ever did was on that bike. I moved from LA to Phoenix, Arizona on that bike. So anything that didn't fit on the back, I either sold or gave away.
Dang.
Just lived very minimalist lifestyle. But and then another podcast you guys were talking about Phoenix having a riding season, but it's like opposite of ours. Yeah. And I was laughing to myself. I was like, yeah, there is a riding season if you have a car. If you don't have a car, and if the only thing you have is a motorcycle, you're riding year round.
Right.
And
you don't have a choice.
Awful. It was so bad. I've never burned myself on the bike worse than when it was just sitting in a parking lot and I went to grab my brake handle and I burned my fingers on the lever.
You wouldn't even think about that here. I mean, they get hot, but not burn you level.
Yeah, that place had. We would gear up the same way that you would gear up when it's cold, and you have the long sleeves and the gloves and the the gaiter around your neck and everything. Sorry, you would do that same thing down there, but to protect you from the heat, not to protect you from cold. So it was just so hot. We learned a lot of tricks of if you're going on a long drive, you'll take your jacket off, take your t-shirt, go into a gas station somewhere, and dip it in the sink, get it really cold water, get it all soaked, put that back on, put your jacket back on, open up all your vents, and then you got a little ghetto swamp cooler kind of thing going on. And it's really good for about 15, 20 minutes, but then it's bone dry again.
I mean, but that would only work in places like Arizona where it's so dry. If you were over in the humid states,
it wouldn't work.
Why am I doing this to myself?
No, but it works great for if you're going through Bakersfield, California, or Arizona, or even St. George. Those areas, those little tricks they're great.
I've seen that people like Matt Laidlaw, when they do their big long trips, that a lot of their guys will have these vests that soak up a lot of water, so it kind of releases slower, so it doesn't dry out as fast.
I didn't know they had that. That's way fancier.
Yeah.
That's way fancier.
I was like, I need to get one of those.
It's a good trick. We do the same thing with bandanas. You soak the bandana in water and then put your helmet back on, but open the vents on your helmet. And you get a little air
a nice
flow
breeze,
in there.
Yeah.
So learned a lot of stuff, that way. But the longest trip I ever did was from Phoenix to LA and then out to Chicago and then back to Phoenix, which was around 4,800 miles. Jeez, so
that's awesome.
It was a big trip. Between the actual miles on the highway and then just, the little dinking around fun, playing around, because it took 3 months to do that trip. And I think before I went back through my front door, I'd put 5,000 miles on the bike. So Shadows, I have an undying love for Shadows in my heart because I've just had one forever. But once I got married and I got to a position where I had a little bit more money and I had a little bit more stability and I could swing for a little nicer bike, that was when I wanted to get something that was American made. And so the whole HD versus Indian, that's where it came up. And for me personally, because I didn't have family that was Harley Davidson fans, I'd never been part of that culture. Even the riding, I do a lot of solo riding, so it's never been a real social thing for me. I mean, I love meeting people for sure. I love that aspect of it. But as far as being on the bike goes, I'm usually by myself on the bike. So the big draws for Harley were, hey, there's dealerships all over the place. There's a huge fan base that you can become a part of, and you can become a family online and at the bike nights and all that stuff. That part just just went over my head. It was never a thing for me. That's not what I'm
really looking for.
Yeah,
exactly.
Not too much. And then you had Indian, who is just clawing for every piece of the market share that they can get, because Harley, let's be real, Harley is the name in motorcycle. Everybody knows that name. Everybody knows the bikes. Indian's definitely coming from behind as far as that goes.
Right.
So they have to kind of earn it a little bit more. So when I was comparing the models that I would possibly get from Indian versus the models I would get from Harley, I had to swing for a much higher trim or package or whatever it's called with the Harley than I would have got out of the box on a base level model with Indian. They were just throwing in things like the ride modes and the ABS and the movable windshields on the bikes out of the fairings. All that stuff kind of came stock. And I think that was because they kind of had to give you a reason. So I think they were just offering more out of the box, if that makes sense. And then I ended up actually just test riding a Scout. Somebody in Salt Lake City had a Scout that was for sale for dirt cheap. I think they were selling for like $6,000. So I picked that one up and loved it. But then I took it on a ride out to California. I rode that one back to LA to go see some friends. And as much as I love those Scouts, and I'm probably going to get some flack for saying this, they are just not made for highway miles.
Not comfy.
No.
So they got like the lower handlebars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've sat on them. I haven't ridden one yet.
Okay.
Because I want to go to an Indian dealer when I have more time. I was hoping to get some yesterday, but just didn't happen.
Okay.
Because I've done a couple. I rode the Springfield, which is what you have.
That's what I got downstairs.
And then what's their like street glide equivalent? It's the Chieftain. Is that what it is?
Chieftain.
Yeah. So I test drove both of those and really liked them. But I do want to try the sport, the
The Scout.
Golly,
the little one.
Because there's a Sport Chief. No.
Yeah.
Sport Chieftain.
Chieftain. Then Road Glide.
Scout. But there's the new Scout, right? Is that a Sport Scout?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what they're calling it. I think they're calling it Sport Scout, but it's basically their performance Scout version.
Right. We'll get there. But anyways, I've sat on it and I'm like, this reminds me of when I rode my Honda Fury, where the Honda Fury's got these really short bars and you kind of lean forward more. And yeah, my back was like the first thing to go out riding on it because it's like your feet are way forward and your arms are way forward.
You're in like a C position. You're like you said, your hands and your feet are both forward. And yeah, it was and I had the mini apes on it to kind of bring me upright a little bit more.
Oh, there you go.
But even still, it just was way fun in any of the twisties and in traffic downtown. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. Great bike. Just if you're gonna be sitting in one position for 4 hours straight, it's not the bike to do it on.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I doing this? I'm not in my 20s anymore. I'm not, like I can afford a bigger bike if I want one now. So I went to a dealership and I tried the Chief, which is I guess the only way you can get a Chief nowadays, the way that this one was, is if you buy their Chief Classic, because now they've redefined their Chief to this much smaller chassis and it's a much lighter bike. But back then it was, I think the one I tested was like a 2012, 13. It was like almost 10 years old. But it was the big full touring size with the 111 Thunderstroke, and it had the big swoopy bags, and it had that big nacelle on the front.
The front fender, or no, yeah.
Yeah, that I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, you know what I mean.
A mullet looking.
Yeah, it is. It's very dated. Let's be real.
It is, but I mean, you're buying it because you want it.
True.
Like I think it has a style, and there's a market of people that's what they're looking for. They want that classic look.
True, because no other bikes that I've seen have that very swoopy right in the front.
I think the only close one would be like back when VTXs were around.
Yep.
And the 1300 had the C. The C is like the closest to that, but it's nowhere near as drastic.
Big, yeah, and dramatic.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I tried that one and was like, my gosh, this is like a lazy boy couch, compared to the Scout. And just a couple months later, I ended up buying the one that I have now. I bought it during COVID because the dealerships everywhere were just trying to sell bikes.
Yeah, they were desperate. They were desperate.
Out. And that bike, the MSRP on that bike's like 23, 24, whatever it is. And there was a dealership in Wisconsin that was trying to get rid of their 2019 models to make room for the 2020s.
Oh, they were like new old stock.
Exactly.
Old new stock.
So this one, and this one had been used, I want to say it was for demo days or something. It had already gone through its 500-mile break-in period. So they had done the 500-mile fluid exchange where they just redo everything for you. It was sitting right at like 600 miles and it already had its break-in service, and they dropped it down to like 19,000. And so I called them up and was like, dude, take it off the floor. I'll be there in a week. Just let's buy it online.
So you just fly out of there.
So I flew one-way ticket. I had the whole plane to myself because it was COVID. So like I had to wear a mask the whole time, but I was in this massive plane all by myself, and I just carried a backpack with a sleeping bag and a ground pad on it, and carried the helmet, and that was my carry-on. And I flew into Racine, Wisconsin, and the guy from the dealership picked me up from the airport and drove me over there. We signed it. He gave me the keys, and I started driving back to Salt Lake, and it took me about 3 days to do, but it was a kind of a trial by fire again, kind of like the first bike where I got to know the bike really, really well. But
Have to.
Yeah, and it's the biggest bike I've ever owned. You know, like up until then, the biggest one was a Scout. Scouts are tiny compared to that.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a little getting used to, but now every time I sit on, my brother has a Scout now. I've got him on the Indian Bug.
There you
go. He bought a Scout last year, and I love riding his. But every time I get off of it and I get back onto mine, I'm like, yeah, this is way more comfortable.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what blew my mind is when I first got my Harley, I rode it nonstop. I was riding it to work. I was riding it back home. I was picking up my wife. I was going to the hospital, all these things. And then I finally got somebody who was interested in the Fury. And so I rode it to their house because they happened to be here in Brigham City.
okay.
And I'm like, this thing is tiny. What the
Once you got
freak?
back on it,
Yeah.
yep.
It's like half the weight almost. It's like,
Those Furies are cool looking though.
they're fun.
You know, Shaq's got one, right?
Really?
Shaquille O'Neal's got a custom one made for him that they had to like. It's an OC chopper kind of. They took the Fury and extended it for him because he's too big of a guy.
But it's a Fury base.
It's a Fury base, but they like chopped it and stretched it. And
Hold
put
on,
it back.
I gotta look this up right now.
Yeah.
Hold on. Anyways, yeah, that sounds like my dream vacation. Like going out, flying one-way ticket, picking up
Pick
a
a
brand
bike
new
up and come
bike.
back. Search motorcycle. I think you'll find it under.
Oh my gosh, this one?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yep.
They put 3 wheels on it.
He's just so big, man. Look at that.
Dude, that is dorky.
He is ginormous.
I thought the regular one looked a little funky, but that is
Just wait till you put Shaq on one.
nice.
But yeah, it was a way fun trip. And what was so funny was when I was landing, the pilot, you know how they always like come out and go, thanks for flying with us,
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
The pilot must have been a biker because he saw me carrying the, my helmet had the showy bag around it, you know, that you can carry it,
yeah.
whatever. He goes, hey, have fun on the bike. And I was like, oh, thanks. He's like, are you picking up a bike? I said, yeah. He goes, nice, I'm jealous. But he was just a way cool guy. But it was a weird trip because, you know, like you're used to being able to stop at gas stations and do all your normal stuff on these road trips. And it was still at that time where like I would poke my head in and be like, are you guys, like, can I walk in here? Do I have to pay like in some weird, because everybody was like freaking out. I think it was
Such
April.
a weird time.
It was a very weird time. It was like The Walking Dead, honestly. It was like between the airport, which was freakishly empty. Like there was nobody waiting at the gates. I think I saw maybe 30 people the entire day in the airport. Jeez. So it was like The Walking Dead inside the airport. And then once we touched down and landed, and then I got the bike and I was starting to make my way through all these towns, there was just nobody out. And it was like I had to make sure I could gas up somewhere. And it was a weird drive, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you're just out on the open road just by yourself.
I love that. I've got at one point in time I did all the math, and I'm like over 60-something thousand miles since when I started, and most of those have been
Solo miles.
solo trips.
There you go.
But I get a lot of podcasts in that way. I get a lot of audiobooks in that way. When I first started doing it, it was just an iPad, or not iPad. I'm sorry, an iPod. If you remember those.
Oh yeah, of course.
It was like make your playlist before and hit the shuffle button and tuck it somewhere in your jacket and zip everything back up. And then if a song came on that you didn't like, you just wait because there's no chance of changing it.
Was it like the screenless shuffle?
It was those ones. It wasn't shuffle. It was I want to say it was the iPod video color is what they called it. But it was the one. It was the very first one that had a colored screen.
Oh, okay.
And you could upload music videos to it, which I thought was
it the
bomb.
one that was like maybe that big?
It was probably it was a rectangle. It was that one that had the big spin dial underneath it and then the screen on top.
Okay, yeah.
At the time, it was small. Okay, but no, it was
Good point.
It was a chonky one.
Those things were epic.
They were. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. But that's my huge and you know before we get like too deep into the brand stuff, that's kind of how I've always seen Indian was like. I saw Indian as Android trying to not catch up, but trying to compete with iPhone, where everybody knew iPhones. Everybody knows them. Chances are most people you meet have one. That's just the go-to choice for phones. Android's always been the, hey, we'll come up with extra stuff to get you to buy it. So they tend to throw in those things. And then, you know, iPhone will come out and say, hey, we have Swipe. And all the Android users were like, we've had Swipe for years. This is nothing new. You know, it's like when HD or when Harley came out with the ride modes, all the Indians guys were like, we've had ride modes for years. You know? So I just see some parallels there.
No, I love the idea of competition.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I wish there were more American motorcycle companies because I mean, for a time it was Harley, Indian, and Victory.
Mm-hmm.
And then
kind of Triumph.
Victory was, and then Victory was owned by Polaris, and then Indian went up for sale,
and Polaris
they bought
them.
him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, why are we running two companies? Let's just,
which is a real shame.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the Victories. I'm like, I wish they were still around, but
yeah, it is a shame.
I mean, some of that DNA did make it into the Indian.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Octane, the Victory Octane?
Probably. I don't know the models as well.
It's copyright infringement close to a Scout. Or sorry, let me put it this way. The Scout is copyright infringement close to it. It's basically just an Octane with the Indian badges on it. I think the engine is maybe 20 cc smaller, and there's a couple different things to it. But when I went to go buy the Scout at the Indian dealership in Sandy, Utah, the guy was like, "Well, we have a used Octane. Have you looked at those before?" I was like, "No." He goes, "It's the same bike, but like $4,000 cheaper."
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking into it, and I was this close to buying the Octane, but somebody bought it before I did.
Oh, wow.
So that's the only reason I didn't end up on a Victory. But they are so similar. Like the parts are all the same. You can swap them back and forth. It's a lot.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So in the Army, I had a sergeant that bought two Victories, actually.
Okay.
And I was like, aren't you worried about like being able to service those or have parts? And he's like, well, supposedly Indian guarantees those parts for X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a ton of the parts are like you said, identical to the Indian. So you can still work on those bikes.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, like I'm a Polaris fan. I have a Polaris 4-wheeler. I grew up on Polaris as far as like 4-wheelers and that sort of thing goes. So they solid company for making that power sports and making the engines and making vehicles that can take a beating. I'm a big fan of Polaris. But I really do think it's a shame that they took something like the Victory and then just put a hard stop to it. It was like, this brand is now gone the way of the dinosaurs. And if you can find one, great, but there will never be another new Victory, which is a little sad.
Yeah. Maybe they'll sell it off one day.
Yeah, somebody might rebrand as Victory and bring them back. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened to Indian multiple times. I think Harley too, didn't it?
No, Harley's the only continuous one as far as I know.
Okay. Yeah.
They're not technically as old. So Indian, I think, was 1 or 2 years newer or older. And then Harley came around. Harley has been owned by different companies, but has never like closed
Stopped
doors.
production.
Yeah. So 1903 and onward.
Yeah. And I've gotten into this argument with people before where, they're like, well, yeah, technically Indian's older, but only by this much. And it was like, it's kind of like when people argue over, hey, my bike's 1100 and yours is 1150. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, there's a difference there, but let's be real. For all intents and purposes, that's the same size bike. These two companies are both old. They're both American. They do have some differences, but whether your bike's at 1900 and mine's an 1800, those are both still full-size touring bikes.
Right. It's like asking a twin who's older.
Right. Exactly.
Well, he came out 16 seconds before I did.
It's bragging rights, but that's really all it's good for,
Yeah. No, I wish there, like I said, I wish there was more, because I feel like without Indian, Harley wouldn't do as much.
Yep.
They just status quo.
Why? Everybody already knows them.
Yeah, and
we'll buy them.
That's what's nice about the Indians doing all those extra things, is that now Harley's like, hey, if I don't do those other things, I'm going to fall behind the wayside. So it's been really good for Harley Davidson, in my opinion, to have a competitor to race against with the king of the baggers and just try to outsell. Because there's a lot of technology, especially in the last 2 years, that has come out in Harley Davidsons that were never there before.
Yep. In preparation for this, I was looking up some of their stuff, and a lot of the stuff that Indian was bragging about, hey, come to us because we've got adjustable windshields, we've got the ride modes, we've got blah 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 blah. Harley's now come out with, and now Indian's going to have to come up with something new to set them apart, because now they've caught up, and Harley will probably pull ahead. I don't want to get too tinfoil hat, but I feel like sometimes these companies are like, hey, what are you doing this year? And like, all right, we'll let you do that, but then we're going to catch up. We're going to I don't want to say they talk to each other, but it sometimes feels like they do, I
wouldn't be surprised. Just like the corporate chain. I don't know. It's like I mentioned in the last podcast that, I feel like sometimes Harley leaks. How did that picture get out? Come on.
We have no idea how this got out. But then things change based off the public response to it.
Exactly. That's
video gamers do that all the time.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this isn't fully released yet. And it's like, well, why are you releasing it? Because they want feedback and they want to change it up. And
that's why I wondered with that Lowrider ST because it is based off the more traditional FXR fairing, FXRT, I believe. If I'm still new to older models.
Sure.
I'm not as good with older models, but so it like looks like it. You can tell that's what it's inspired by it, but it's not like identical. And personally, I like the older one better, but it still looks good. But yeah, I was like, you know, if it was really bad reception, maybe they'd be like, let's hurry and switch it real quick.
Let's change something up.
Nah, those leaks they're legit, of course. Everything's legit. They're straight up with you guys.
Corporate entities would never be dishonest with you.
To make more money? Not a chance. What are you talking about?
All right, let's dig into this. Okay, so let's start small and go big. Does that sound good? Okay. And I might need your help to, let's see, cruisers, baggers, touring, standard, elite, electric. All right, Scout 66 and Scout.
So the Scout is like your base entry-level model with Indian, right? It's the smallest bike they make. It's 1,200 and I think like 3cc, whatever it is, unless you swing for the Scout 60 model.
Okay.
So the Scout comes standard with a 69 cubic inch engine, and then the Scout 60 goes down to the 60-inch engine, which is only like, I think converts to like maybe 40 cc's difference. So it's not a huge difference. But they're a little cheaper. They don't come with the ABS, I don't think. Maybe they do now. They didn't when I was looking.
Trim is just slightly different. Looks like they've got maybe chrome versus blacked out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you want to get like that blacked out engine look.
Oh, no, it's got blacked out.
Oh, do they?
60, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure it's just a trim. Like, oh, pay another $1,000. Yep, don't worry about it.
Oh my gosh. And that was the other thing I felt like Harley was doing and Indian wasn't. And now that I've spent a little more time on their website, they're starting to do it too, where they're just like, all those things that we used to offer for free, we've now realized that we can increase our ticket sales if we make you pay for it. It's like, oh, you dogs.
Yeah, let's see. So 78 horsepower, 60 cubic inch engine, and then the Scout 105 horsepower to 111.
But it's an extra $3,000 on top.
Yeah. 1,250.
Those few extra horses will cost you money.
All right, let's grab our competitor from the Harley Davidson side. Now, I don't feel like there is as direct of a competitor now, mainly because they discontinued the original Sportster. So I'm going to say probably the closest would be the Nightster.
Which is liquid cooled also, right?
Now, yes, because this is their new Revolution Max engine.
Okay.
So let's see. It came out, I think, 21, give or take, because the engine came out with the Pan America.
Yeah.
And then they have since released the Sportster S, the Nightster, and the Nightster Special, or Nightster S.
Did you ever ride the Pan America?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
I'd need to.
It's a very tall bike.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a tall guy.
True.
And I still feel like it's tall.
Yep, that's fair. Yeah, imagine being a guy who's not. How tall are you?
I'm 6'3", 4", something like that.
Damn, good for you. Okay, so imagine being 6'9", and like I'm tiptoeing that bike, barely touching the ground on it, and it's a fun bike. I've never like stood up on cruiser or on a Harley before that bike, but it's a very big bike in my opinion.
We'll get to it, but I know that it has like adaptive ride height if you get the special model.
Those.
Yeah. Anyway, so Nightster, my bad. Nightster 2024. What do we got here on specs? Performance. 72 foot-pounds. So that's the difference too. Oh no, it does actually show horsepower. 91 horsepower. And this one is also the 975 cubic centimeter.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have the 1250 and then they have the 975.
Okay. Yep. Very similar to the Scout and the Scout 60.
So let's see. The smaller one, they're a lot more comparable. So yeah, about 60s when it comes to price. I mean,
yeah, you're a couple hundred off.
Yeah, like $1,000. But there's like there's not much to the Nightster. What do you think on styling? How do you feel about it?
Well, and I mean they're both going to be what I would consider. Maybe you have a different opinion, but like I would call that a mid-size cruiser, right? Like you're not full blown tourer or bagger style yet. You're You're bigger than like the little Honda Rebels that are 300 to 500 cc. You're even bigger than the Shadows, though I'd throw the Shadows in that midsize cruiser category as well. And I'm going to be fully honest with you. The only Sportster that I think looks really, really good is that Iron 883. Like the way that they have the handlebars so low and they have that peanut tank that almost gets higher and it kind of has that like hunched, almost I don't know, like to me it almost kind of looks like a cat. You know, like when the cats get their shoulders all up high, they're ready to pounce on you or something. It just looks like a very aggressive, leaning forward bike.
Right.
This to me just looks like a gnarlier version of a Shadow.
Yeah, I could see that. A little more.
It's just tamer. It's a little more calmer, a little more, it's not as aggressive lining. It's just kind of a very straightforward, no BS kind of cruiser.
My thing about this one that I know it's really stupid, but it weirds me out that the gas tank, like you fill the tank underneath the seat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that is not a gas tank. That right there.
What is it?
That's the air filter.
No.
As far as I understand it, the gas tank is right here.
That is weird.
Yeah, I don't like it.
That is weird.
You literally pop the seat sideways
to fill it up?
And then there's, yeah.
I had no clue about that.
Yeah, it's super weird.
See, like, I'm sure there's probably like an engineering decision, that went with that. Like, there's probably way more to that story than what I know. But just my gut reaction to that is, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm sorry. There probably is a logistical reason for this, but my gut reaction is, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Scout, and again, like, granted, I'm wearing the Indian brand right now, but like to me, that's just a cool looking bike. Like you don't see a lot of bikes that look like that. The engine looks like it's out of something out of the future. The tank has those kind of sharper, cut sides to them. Like I just think that's a very unique, cool looking bike that's gonna catch your attention.
Definitely does not look. Well, I guess it has different, the Rogue, the Bobber, and whatnot. So you'd have to decide what kind of riding you wanted to do. Because I'm going to go out on a limb and say you ain't fitting a passenger seat on the back of that one.
You can. My brother has that exact one that you just pointed out.
This one right here?
Yep. He's got a 2022 Rogue, and he got their 2-up seat, their Rogue 2-up seat. So the seat kind of gets like it's a combined, it's not separate seats. It's just one that kind of comes up over the fender right there. But it's a very small piece of cushion. Like, if you're a big person, it will not be comfortable to be
if you're the back the 2-up rider, you might not want to ride on the back of that bike.
I'll be fully honest with you, even the driver on that bike,
it does not look like as much. Yeah, that looks like it's half your booty cheek.
Oh yeah, it's a very well, and the Scout that I bought when I bought him, you see that one right there? How it's that black leather saddle right there?
Right here.
The Scout that I bought had that exact saddle, except for it was still their bomber jacket brown, whatever they called it. It was a brown leather saddle, but it was that saddle, and that thing was basically like they just took a leather strap across, the chassis and said, "There you go, sit on it." It was terrible. Like I couldn't ride home from work before my butt would start to hurt.
And you rode that to California?
I changed it for a Corbin seat before I went to California because I literally couldn't go from Centerville where I lived down to Sandy, Utah where I worked when I was working for the software company. That ride from Sandy back to Centerville in rush hour traffic, roughly 45, 50 minutes, whatever it was, my butt would be sore. I'd be like, I'm ready to get off the bike by now.
Yeah.
So I had to get a new one.
Yeah. I didn't even realize this one kind of had that same swoosh going on.
Yeah. The base Scout, they try to do that Indian,
more
look
classic
to it.
look.
But then the bobbers, in my opinion, the bobbers look better.
So is it mainly just trim? Like there's no...
Nope. I think they have the same... Or no, they have different tire. They have different spokes in the tires. So like that Rogue's going to have a much thinner tire on the front. And the Bobber's going to have a more gnarly kind of tire in the front.
And then the Rogue has the miniature
quarter fairing.
Yeah. And some mini apes or something.
Yep. And if you go to the new one that they just released, the Sport whatever one, that one has their little ride command cluster in it.
Gotcha.
So you've got that small cruiser.
Where's that under?
It might not even be on the website. Yeah, they just announced it.
So, because it's not it. So that commercial that we watched on last week's 2 weeks ago episode,
Yeah.
Was that just an announcement?
I think it was just an announcement. I don't think they've even started selling it yet.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense.
Because I saw it about a month ago, and I sent that to my brother and was like, "Bro, aren't you glad that you bought one last year?" Because the thing he complains, and every Scout owner I know complains about the shocks.
Really?
Apparently, they just have really stiff shocks. The lean angle on it is not real good. Everybody always changes the shocks when they buy a Scout.
Are they adjustable at all?
Nope, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Sorry,
maybe the new one.
The new one has piggyback shocks that are fully adjustable
dang.
right out of the gate. They're nice.
Yeah, see, that's where Harley really needs to step it up because I feel like they do have some adjustment on these ones. Where is it? Yeah, there's like a handle right here that you can adjust or I don't know. It's somewhere. But you can adjust some of them, but like very minor adjustment, and it might be only one side. And because I know with the Softail line, you can adjust that center shock. So, all right, enough said about Scouts. You think?
Love them. They obviously have their quirks. Sportsters, like I said, if I was to ever get a Harley, I'd give me an Iron A83, and I would just go bananas on the customizations. But I've seen some really cool custom.
Well, and that's the cool thing about the Sportster is like you can literally build it from nothing.
Yeah,
you don't even have to buy one from Harley.
Yeah, I know.
You can buy the frame. You can buy literally everything
from 100 different companies.
Yeah,
just put one together.
Just make your own. So
and I love that. That's cool in my opinion because bikes should reflect the rider in my opinion. Like 100%. That's your Millennium Falcon, right? However you want it set up, whatever color you want, whatever. If you want the cup holder, if you want the extra exhaust, if you want whatever, that's your reflection, right? And the one downside to Indian, and again, sorry for saying this, Indian, but the aftermarket market for Indian is severely lacking, especially if you stack it up against Harley.
So is that when you say aftermarket, are you saying like third party or
third party.
Both?
Well, yeah, actually, I would say both.
Yeah,
I mean,
because I've heard that Indians
to do
like
some custom
like
stuff.
the stuff they sell from dealerships, it's very limited.
Very limited. And even when you go into like the third party market, there's a couple brands that are picking them up and starting to make stuff for Indians, but not near the options. And I mean, geez Louise, with Harley, you can get everything from your lights to the pipes to the saddle, the stitching, everything is you know there. And with Indian, they'll be like, we have some select Indian options, and you'll go to their website and they'll say it's just for the tourers. So if you have the Scout or if you have the Springfield, even sometimes I've had manufacturers who they make a part for just the Chieftains. Yeah, none of the rest of the Indian lineup.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing that I love about Harleys is you can change everything. Yep. It was funny because on last week's episode, talking to Weston about upgrading and working on bikes, and I'm a little nervous now because he's like, yeah, it's starting to get harder, not like impossible, but like harder to get stuff for the twin cams because they're starting to phase it out. They've got all Milwaukee 8s for the last 2017, so
6 years-ish, 7 years,
8 going on 8, So I mean, it's not even like a brand new engine anymore. Right. Like this Rev Max is even newer. I wish that they would release some more models with it because I think it, from what I can tell, it's an amazing engine. Like it's bulletproof.
Really?
That's what I've heard. Like the way that it's able to be adjusted and whatnot. I haven't done a ton of research into them just because I don't really fit on any of the bikes that they offer it in, other than maybe the Pan America. But I do need to give that one a try. But
you know what they should do is kind of segueing into the next category or whatever you want to call it. Is when I was looking around online, I didn't know what Harley would offer as a direct comparison to Indian's FTR 1200. Are you familiar with the FTR?
That's the kind of sportier looking one, right?
That's their naked bike that they offer.
Yes, let's look that up.
It's a street legal version of their flat track racer, and that thing's just got more medals than a 5-star general. Like if you look at its racing history, the FTR just cleans house.
So has it been racing in what circuit?
So the flat track racers, and that's like where Indian's whole their whole backstory is rooted in back in the day when they would just do those dirt, flat track racing. Indian would clean house with their engine, and now there's something called the Hooligan, Ultimate Hooligan.
Yeah, right here.
Something
Super Hooligan.
Yeah,
this one.
Yep.
Man, they got like 1 million models.
Oh, dude, those ones are taking off. I haven't seen a whole lot of them here in Utah, but in California, I was there last year,
really?
and I've seen them everywhere in California. And, which makes
FTR.
sense because it's taller. It's it's kind of that naked Street Fighter style bike where you're upright but you're kind of leaning forward, and it's got a liquid cooled, bulletproof, massive torquey engine on it, and people just have fun on them.
So before we continue, how does Indian distinguish their engines? Are they all kind of the same family, or is this one unique to its model? And then
they've got, as far as I understand it, and again, I'm not the expert here, but from observation, the 3 engines that you see all the time are going to be the liquid-cooled 1200, which this and the Scout engine are going to be similar, but think of this as like the racing version of the Scout's engine.
the way it's tuned and everything.
Right. Then you've got their Thunderstroke engine, which is the air-cooled big V-twin touring engine that they've put on their Chiefs and their Chieftains and all that stuff for forever. That's what's on my Springfield. And then they have their liquid-cooled Power Plus, I think is what it's called. I almost called it Power Plant. I think it's called Power Plus.
So is that like a Thunderstroke, but just with cooling?
It's smaller. It's not a 111. I think it's a 108. If I'm correct. It's a 108 liquid cooled, and it's what they put in their Challenger when the Challenger came out.
Gotcha.
That was the brand new bike altogether. They hadn't offered a frame mounted fairing up to that point because the Chieftains were all just
The fork mounted. Yeah.
right. So then the Challenger had its frame mounted fairing and this brand new liquid cooled engine on it. So it was just completely different all around.
So I think the only close one would be the Sportster S when it comes to competing, where it's the kind of more sporty look one.
Okay, with the FTR.
Yeah. So let's see. FTR starting at 13.5, 16.9. So quite a bit more expensive. But then again, let's see what your different packages are.
Yeah, if you go up to that Hooligan, that one's probably crazy expensive.
It doesn't even show like all the differences. I mean, I don't hate the look. It's definitely unique.
It's very unique.
And I think that's one thing that Harley and India need to do is they need to branch out a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was all these bikes that were announced to have this Revolution Max, or potentially like there's one, what was it called? It's like not the Boulevard, it was the Bronx.
Okay.
And it was even more kind of cafe racer like looking one. Let's see. Bronx.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Where is it? This one?
Yeah, I would put that kind of more up against the FTR where it's got that
see,
Street
it's a
Fighter
lot
look.
closer.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got like canceled, and now we're not getting it. It's
And,
like,
and
gosh,
I've
dang it.
seen I've seen, like, I'm sure you probably do you follow Revzilla, Lemmy, and all those guys?
Not super closely. Like
Okay.
I'll see some of the stuff, but
They've got podcasts and articles out the wazoo. So if you ever want to, like deep dive into a specific model, chances are they've got some research already done and would be a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
But they do like to talk about Harley a lot because a lot of those guys are Harley riders. But they do a lot of metric stuff also. And whenever, they're talking about Harley, they always seem to come back to this point of Harley's in this kind of weird spot where, their old population riders are starting to get old. They're starting to, they're not buying new bikes anymore. They've got to appeal to this younger generation.
or they'll die.
Yeah, like you have to. And that's what Indian did, right? Indian started coming out with the FTR and all this other stuff. So Harley started doing that with their Electroglide and with the Pan America. They started coming out with these brand new models, and they just have to stick to their guns because every time that they don't have good sales, they decide to pull the plug. And it's like, no, just let it cook.
happen.
Yeah. Someone's going to pick it up.
Let him cook.
Let him cook. But they just, if they don't come out the gates swinging with the home run, they tend to pull the plug on these projects. And it's like, just let people get used to it. It's brand new.
I'm like, look at the Pan America and how successful it's been.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just make it and let it happen.
Yep.
If it doesn't work, then like give it a couple of years and then phase it out.
Yep.
But at least you
never
did
know
it.
the cult following it could get.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, that's kind of the closest. I haven't ridden one of these either, the Sportster S.
Yeah, me neither.
I need to just like take a weekend and like go ride everything. Here's my big complaint. And this one actually does a pretty good job at beating this complaint when it comes to Indian is the paint. I mean, this one does okay. I'm a very like classical stylized bike person. Like I hate matte.
Oh,
I
really?
hate it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
You don't want to look at my bike then.
I mean, but that I don't hate. Like I'm not gonna be like, how dare you buy matte? Like I don't care if you like matte. I don't like matte.
Right.
And so, Indian, I felt like for years, it was like 80% matte and like 20%
for sure
gloss or flake or whatever. And that one always bothered me. But I just went into Young Power Sports in Centerville with a friend of mine because he's really interested in getting an Indian.
Okay.
And so he's like, hey, I just want to see what you think. And so a bunch of us are friends already ride and went with him. And
that place is huge.
Oh, it's ginormous. It's huge. So if you want to look at anything outside there. I mean, there's a couple of used Harleys, but other than that, like Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Royal Enfield, KTM, some off brands that I don't really recognize super well, but like they've got, I think they've got, do they have Suzuki there?
I mean, they could.
They might. If not, it's like down the road at one of their other locations. So, yeah, if you're interested and you're in Utah looking at
to Centerville.
Bunch of bikes at the same time and just having a good time, go check it out. But
for sure. So you went there and checked out, and you realized that Matt was actually way prettier than you thought. Huh?
No. I realized that they had read my mind and started making some gloss bikes because they made, I think it was one of the Sport Chiefs that it was like kind of a black with gold flake. I was like, this thing is gorgeous. Like if I were to buy an Indian today, it would be that bike.
Was it the Jack Daniels version?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know any of their paint jobs.
One of the things that Indian does is they take every bike in their lineup, and I have no clue like what the pattern is, why they choose what model they choose, but they'll choose one model and they'll do what they call a Jack Daniels edition, which just means they'll take that bike, they'll soup it up as cool as they can, like the best shocks and the best seat and the best whatever. They'll throw it on there for you, and then they brand the whole thing Jack Daniels. But the paint job is always glossy. They don't do the matte stuff that they do on all their Dark Horse models. It's always super shiny. It's gorgeous. If you get a chance, go look up Jack Daniel edition motorcycles. Yeah, and they're good looking.
I wonder because it was the Sport Chief, because the Sport Chief should be on here. Yeah, Sport Chief.
Yep, and that's a cool bike. I test rode that one.
Yeah, I don't see it here, but
no, you won't. They only make like 150 of them.
Oh, okay.
So it's like you pre-order it and you pay an extra penny. I just assumed it was like
custom or something.
Yeah, it could have been. But yeah, next time you're Googling, Google Jack Daniel Indian editions. They've got some way cool ones.
Yeah. So let's see. Air-cooled Thunderstroke, like you said, 111 and 116. So they have two different size engines.
Yep.
And what models have which?
So I believe you can get the 111 or the 116 in either of those models. The Sport Chief automatically, I think, is going to be your 116.
Right.
And I think the Bobber is going to be an automatic 116 as well. But the regular Chief and the Super Chief both could come in either option. What cracks me up is the 116 was basically their stage 3, right? So like Indian had stage 1, which was your air filter and exhaust and tune. Then you had stage 2, which was your cams. And then stage 3 was your big bore kit.
Right.
And that was the 116. And then they just started offering the 116 as an option out of the gate.
I mean, Harley's been doing that for years. I mean, it's like it starts with one size and moves to the next, and then that next size is now the low, and then they make a new big.
Yep, it's just slowly getting bigger and bigger.
Even within the Milwaukee 8, like it came out with the 107 and the 114, and then you had a 117 in the CVO models, and then now they phased out the 107. The 114 is now the base, and all the new touring bikes come with the 117, and then the new CVO is 121. Yeah, so it's freaking huge.
How American is that? Right, we just keep getting bigger. And
that's
bigger
why
over time.
Like, that's the struggle that I worry about with both brands is that there's a lot of new riders, and I think Indian does it better. I mean, slightly better where they have some options that are a little smaller. Yeah. But I mean, Harley, you're not getting anything that's basically under 1,000. So if you're a new rider, like, oh crap, unless you're taking a course or you feel really confident or both, like you might be screwed when it comes to wanting to buy any of those.
What size bike was your first bike?
It was, so the first bike I owned was 900.
Okay, mine too.
So yeah, the FZ09.
Okay.
2015?
That's a fast bike.
16. Yeah, very
That's
fast.
a very fast bike for a first one. Jeez.
Well, like I learned street riding and took my test on a DR650.
Okay.
So a lot more calm, I guess, But yeah, the first bike I owned, like that was my bike.
Was that 900?
Was that 900?
I feel like a lot of people start, on a whatever size they start on. But you'll outgrow anything smaller than 750, depending on the size or depending on the riding you're doing.
Right.
Right. Obviously, if you're zipping around on town and you've got an R6, that's, in my opinion, as fast as you ever need to go. An R6 will, take off without you.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be on a cruiser, I feel like most people tend to want to get close to that 1,000, if not higher, by their second or third season.
Yeah, that's what's hard is because my buddy that is looking at the Indian, he's like, I don't know, do I get something small? And he's like, well, I don't want to spend a lot of money on something that I'm just going to outgrow.
Yep.
I'm like, dude, go to a course, learn how to ride. You'll feel a lot better about riding in general. And then maybe you'll be like, okay, look, I know how I ride.
Oh, he doesn't ride now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm like, maybe if you take this course and you'll have a little more experience, you'll know that you're comfortable riding something a little bigger, then that'll be okay. But if you like take the course and you're like, oh crap, I can't handle this, maybe then you get a Shadow or something,
I would never go buy, I mean, that bike right there is $14,999.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, dude.
There's no way I would ever drop that much money on the very first bike if I wasn't an experienced rider already. I didn't buy my first new bike until I bought this Dark Horse. I'd been riding for...
Because that was new old stock. That's right.
And I'd been riding for 10 years at that point and had 25,000, 30,000 miles under my belt. And then it was like, okay, I'll splurge and buy something brand new. But man, if you're a new rider, because you know how that was like one of your prompts for your first episode, more so than the size of the engine and the style of the bike and all of those specs, I should have just said, you know what, more than anything, just go get on something that's old, that's banged up, that you won't feel guilty if you drop.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Go learn on that, Get a season under your belt. And then if you've decided, yeah, I'm good and I'm not in any danger of dropping this, maybe then go buy a brand new bike. Yeah. But gosh, I would hate to drive something off the lot if I wasn't confident on it.
I mean, I still haven't spent even that much on a bike. Like I lucked out with mine and I found mine for like $10K.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because 3 years ago when I got it, I was looking at pretty much everything because that was kind of my price point. Like I think I can afford that. And the only things that were available at that price point were like 2008s, 2009s, and 2010s. And then that one popped up as a 2012 and it was that price. And I was like, I'm buying this tomorrow.
Get it. Yep. 3-4 years newer for the same price. Boom.
Yeah. And so, I lucked out with that one. But
I just know there's people that are afraid, and rightly so. I mean, like if you buy a brand new bike for 12 to 17,000, somewhere in that range, I can understand wanting to be careful with it, but then sometimes that can discourage people from like wanting to go out on it.
Right. Then it turns into like a garage
decor. Yeah. Yep. I got a friend who bought a brand new Harley Fat Bob. It was right off the showroom floor, 0 miles on it, and he was a new rider, so he didn't ride it a lot. He'd ride some Saturdays with us and maybe to a restaurant or to the bar, but I think he sold it with not even 1,000 miles on it, and then he was like, why am I paying this big a monthly payment for a bike that, he's barely putting hundreds of miles on.
Right.
So he turned around and sold it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's such a back and forth with me because I did buy that really big bike at first, and so it's kind of hard for me to tell somebody not to do that.
Right. And yeah, ultimately it'll be their decision. And I don't even care if you buy a big bike, but if you buy a new big bike, the pressure's on to keep it upright.
Yeah.
So again,
it was a couple of years old at that point.
Hop on KSL, go pick up somebody's old junker that again you're not going to care about because there's just things that you just don't think about when you're a new rider, right? Like you don't think like park the bike in a spot where it'll be easy to get out of again.
Like if you park nose first downhill-ish, like even just
good luck backing up
with our big bikes, it's like,
and that's just something you're not going to learn until you've been dumb enough to do it.
Yeah.
Or like if you have shoes with big laces on them, there's a chance that kickstand's going to go inside. If you had that happen, where it catches your shoelace, that'll give you a panic attack right there. When the bike starts to go down and your foot's caught, you can't pick it up.
Well, I'm glad you said something because that is not something I've ever.
Oh yeah, like if I'm going on big rides, if I'm wearing the Timberlands, the laces are tucked in because I've done it before. It was one of those things I hadn't thought about until it happened to me.
Maybe that's why I just naturally I always tuck my boots in.
It's a great habit to be in.
It's an army thing. Like I tuck my laces in my army boots, and then like when I have any lace boots, I like tuck them in.
That's for the same reason. When you're out there being a badass army guy, you can't have your shoelace catch on something. So it makes it, but it's just those little tricks that you won't pick up until you've done it. And if you learn those lessons on a brand new bike, it's a lot more expensive than if you learn them on a junky one. You
Yeah.
know?
Cool. Well, okay. This is one thing that really stinks is I feel like there's a lot less options when it comes to Indians, when it comes to the cruiser end.
Yeah, I
Because
give
like,
you
you
that.
got the Scout, the Chief, Super Chief, and like granted they all have like a lot of versions,
But that's it.
but that's it. I mean, look here at our lineup on the Harley Davidson side. You've got the Softail Standard at 15 Gs, Street Bob 114, 17, Lowrider S, Lowrider ST, Breakout, Fall, Fat Boy, Heritage, and then the Hydroglide, but that's just this year. So, I mean,
But
There's
almost
a
3
lot.
times the options.
oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot more styling. Like these ones, it's kind of a paint with the Scouts or the Chiefs.
Trim
it's like
options.
it's a trim option. It's not actually a different bike.
Agreed.
Whereas like you've got the Softail, that's completely different than the Fat Boy or the Fat Bob or the Heritage. You know, there's a lot more options, and that's just I feel like, hey, Indians, step up, start releasing some more models.
Yep. I mean, the one pushback I would give to that is, what's the difference between them all?
I mean, not a bad pushback. I'd say there are some that are a lot more different, but actually, I forgot they took it out this year. The Fat Bob was last year. Was its last year?
Which is a shame because I really liked that bike.
Yeah, because it was kind of the more sportier cruiser.
It was like a muscle car in a motorcycle package.
Yeah, I have a friend that has one, and it was definitely. I'm a little big for it, but it was cool.
Yep.
So I'm actually kind of surprised that they got rid of it, and maybe it was because it didn't really fit the aftermarket. Like it was harder because it was different. Because I think each and every one of these have the same frame.
So you can use a lot of the same aftermarket parts on them.
I think that like when it comes to pipes and seats and stuff, I think that was the
a lot
same.
of the specs are interchangeable.
So a lot of this is different wheels, different tank shapes. So it is styling, but kind of more in depth. Like the tank on your Breakout versus the tank on your Softail Standard and your Fat Boy. You know, they're all different shapes.
Are they all the same engine?
Yes, exact same engine. So when it comes to the Harley side, you have 2 modern day engines. You have the Revolution Max, which is on the Sportster S. It's on the Nightster S and the Pan America.
Oh yeah, that's the liquid cooled we were just looking at.
The liquid cooled. And then on everything else is the Milwaukee 8 engine, which comes now in this year 114 cubic inch, 117 cubic inch, and 121 cubic inch.
Gotcha.
So all the does the Softail Standard still have the 107? If it does, it is the only model that does, because that was kind of like the standard option. Let me see. Yes. So the Softail Standard is the only Softail that comes with the 107.
Got it.
But my understanding of the Softail Standard is like that's the bike people buy to like mod from ground zero. It has 2 paint options, black or gray, and then it has none of the additives of any of the other models. It doesn't have a fairing. It doesn't have a
Not wasting money on stuff
Yeah.
you're going to take off anyway.
yeah, exactly. So you're not. Why would you want the 114 cubic inch engine in it if you're planning on putting in a big bore kit?
Right.
Kind of. That's how I'm understanding that bike and why it's still around, because I don't think it is as popular, but it purely exists
For the modders.
for the modders. Yeah.
That's your bare bones. Take it and do what you want with it.
Yeah. And then the Lowrider ST is kind of your smaller framed touring bike. It's got the clamshell bags. It's got the larger fairing.
I've seen a couple of those in the Wasatch
pretty-
Front. They're cool
pretty-
looking.
Yeah, they're pretty popular. I really like this year's unique paint job for it came on this model, and then the Ultra Limited. Yes, the Ultra Limited, and then the Tri-Glide.
Okay.
So it's like kind of this Les Paul guitar
I like it.
paint, and that's one thing that I really like about Harley is they really care about the fit and finish.
They do.
Like everything looks super duper clean. The one thing that I noticed is with the chrome engines on the Indians. Where is one? It kind of has that. It's not like chromey chrome. It's kind of like a dull chrome.
Yeah. They call it cloud gray.
Cloud gray. Okay, so the Fat Boy has that same kind of chrome.
Where it's like not brushed chrome.
It's not polished, it's brushed.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I'm not a huge fan of it. I like just regular chrome. I don't know. How do you feel about chrome versus blacked out?
Well, I have a Springfield Dark Horse, which means everything is murdered out on my bike. It's all blacked out. The exhaust, the engine, everything. And part of that was because I hated cleaning chrome. I had chrome on my shadow, and I was down there cleaning it. When I sold it, it had a permanent, I don't know what you'd call it, stain, something. Like I was dating somebody who wore high heels on the back of my bike, and she'd put her heel down on the exhaust pipe. Didn't realize it until it was time to get off, and she went to pick her foot up, and it wouldn't
melted.
come. Yeah, so I had this nasty just gob on my exhaust pipe, and I couldn't get it off. And I was starting to take the chrome off, trying to get it off. So chrome is gorgeous, but it's hard to clean, and I like the murdered outlook.
No, I literally did the same thing, not with high heels though.
You can admit it, this is the same spot.
No, it was winter, and so I was riding with like ski pants, pretty much, essentially, and my leg had touched the exhaust
instantly.
And so so there's like this brownish black mark on the bottom of my exhaust. I'm like, gosh, dang it!
And probably ruined the pants.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely were melted. Like they're down that hem, just totally gone. But yeah, so a lot of options here. If you had to pick a Softail, which one would you go for?
Well,
kind of got the more classical and the Heritage Classic, the Fat Boy, the Terminator style.
If the Fat Bob was an option up here, I would say that one hands down. Like that's the one that when I look at it, I'm just like, what a cool looking bike. And
I don't know why they got rid of it.
That's a good question. I don't know. But I think the reason I like it is because it doesn't look like a stereotypical Harley. Again, I'm the underdog guy. I like to stand out. I like to be different than everybody else. So that to me looks a little different from all the other Harleys, and that's why I like it.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely stand out on that Lowrider ST.
Yeah. Yeah, you would. And it's cool. Like I said, I just was coming back from camping for the 4th of July, and we saw a guy with somebody on the back, so 2 up on it, with luggage on the back, and they clearly had been out for the weekend, and it didn't look like it was too much for that bike at all. Like it looked like they had a fun time.
I mean, it's got the same. It has the 117 on it, so coming standard with the 117, the Lowrider ST, the Breakout 117 in the Softail models. I mean.
No.
There's no
for
need
not even
for
being
power.
like a full dresser or bagger type bike. It's clearly a very capable go get out for the weekend with you and your partner. Like it looks like a way cool bike.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our last kind of bigger section. We'll go to the baggers.
Up to the baggers.
Yeah. So I see on Indian they've got baggers and touring. Is it just the tour pack on the back? Is that the only really difference?
I mean, if you ask me, I think they put touring as a different category just so they can charge you more for the stuff that they won't give you on the bagger tab.
Yeah. And it kind of really confused me when I was looking at it earlier because I always just, you've got the Chieftain and then the
Roadmaster.
Well, like you have the Challenger. So it confused me when I was like, what the freak is this Indian Pursuit thing?
Yeah. So the Roadmaster is to the Chieftain as what the Pursuit is to the Challenger.
But the Chieftain and the Roadmaster have different fairings.
The Roadmaster's going to have, and the Roadmaster, that one that you're looking at right now, has that like traditional Indian, but that picture.
Oh, because there's more than
fairing.
one. Ooh.
Yeah. So you can get that old classic Indian fairing if you want.
I hate that
or
one.
you can get that more slammed fairing if you want. You can do either one.
The traditional Roadmaster fairing with like the extra lights right there, I think it looks so corny. I'm not a fan.
There were people, I remember at one point in time, somebody had made a meme or something where they'd taken that old fairing and they were like, why are these lights and why are these not reflectors? Why do we have different, or not reflectors, I'm sorry. Why are they not the blinkers? Because the Roadmaster has 2 dedicated blinker lights somewhere else. It was like, so why didn't you just,
below.
Yeah, it was like, why didn't you just make this the blinker?
Yeah, like integrated turn signals.
Why is there extra lights on this thing?
Yeah, I do. Wow, I gotta admit, that is a good looking bike.
It's a big bike.
Yeah, I mean, it's got everything. Full dresser.
Huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
So, okay. What, when it comes to Indian, what is the difference between elite and dark horse?
So, and again, observation, I'm not the pro on this, but elite's going to be like all your gold flake paint jobs. It's going to be the extra chrome. It's going to be all the big bells and whistles. Whereas the dark horse usually is the kind of cut down version. It's the it's the bob cut murdered style. So they take all the chrome off. They give you matte everything. They black out the pipes. Like when I got the difference between if you were to get the spring-filled, like my bike is downstairs, if you were to get the normal spring-filled versus the dark horse version of the spring-filled, the regular spring-filled comes with the sissy bar, and it comes with floorboards for your passenger, and it comes with all the goodies that you would want to upgrade to.
Yeah.
Whereas the dark horse version took all that out.
Okay.
So you don't have the drive lights on it anymore. You don't have the floorboards. They take all that stuff down and they cut it down to a more kind of aggressive looking trim.
Gotcha. I always, because I haven't done a ton of research in them, but I always just assumed it was like the equivalent of the CVO, but apparently not. I'm going to guess at this point from observation that the elite is kind of that.
That would be your CVO comparison.
CVO equivalent. Okay. I'm on the same page. All right. So Springfield versus Road King.
And there's 1,000 videos of that exact phrase, what you just said. Road King versus Springfield. Who's the winner? And depending on which video you win, it's a clear knockout either
So were
way.
you ever looking at a Road King at all?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they're way cool.
Yeah.
If I were going Harley, I'd probably get Road King. I think the new ones look really good. If you watch Mayans, they're all on Road Kings. They've got now granted, it's more the low, slow Mexican biker style.
Vaquero or
Los
that
Vatos or whatever they're called.
Yeah, that style.
Yeah.
I like those.
I think they're way cool. If I was to ever get one, that's when chrome is cool. I'm all for it. I watched, what's his name? Danny Trujillo, the guy from Machete. I forget his name.
Yes.
His bike is all chromed out. It's gorgeous. It's a good looking bike. And he's got a big Road King that he's dropped real low. It's got like a 1/2 inch clearance on it. So I like the Road Kings. Again, the big reason why I went with the Indian was because at the time anyway, Indian was offering the ride modes. They were offering the extra little bells and whistles, and chances of you parking next to another one out on the street on any given day is 0.0 something.
Right,
you
they're
don't
not as
see
common.
Them.
Do you wish it was more common?
No.
Or you're like,
I
okay
love
being
turning
unique.
heads, man. I love turning heads. I think it's way cool. You get people all the time that go, oh, Indian's still around? And I'm like,
Really?
If you didn't know that, then I'm glad I rode by because they're getting there. They're getting the traction, but there's still a ton of people
that people wouldn't know that they exist.
All the time I get that. I get people, I'll be like in the Home Depot parking lot, going to my bike. If I'm buying something small, any excuse to be on the bike, I'm on the bike.
Yes.
So obviously I'm not picking up timber on it, but if I'm picking up a tool, I'll take the bike. And I had one guy drive past all slow in his truck and was like, when are you going to grow up and buy a Harley? And it's all in good fun.
Right.
It got the conversation going. We exchanged numbers, to go meet up for a ride later on. Like it's a cool conversation starter that I don't know if I would get quite as many opportunities to start conversations on a Harley as I would on the Indian.
Yeah, they definitely stand out.
They do.
They're a lot. They are close, but the styling, you can tell the styling differences.
They're different.
Yeah. What would I do? I do really like if I got an Indian, it'd probably be the Springfield.
Yeah.
Yes. That is what I will say, because I just need a bigger bike. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge fan of the paneling because I feel like there's like a lot of extra paneling to kind of cover up the drive chain and everything like that.
I've heard that a couple times.
And I'd probably have to go with the dark horse.
Yeah, you see how so the one that you're on right now, the normal Springfield, whatever that's called, that one comes with the engine guards. It comes with those floorboards in the back. It just comes with a lot of extra stuff. Whereas with the dark horse, they just strip it all down.
Are the bags different?
The bags, so the new bags, 2020 and on, they call those slammed bags. The 2019 and older models still have the same round saddlebags as the traditional ones.
Gotcha.
And that's why I wanted the 2019 specifically. The 2019 is the only model that has the old traditional bags, but has that new tire. You see how the front fenders are different?
This one right here.
Yeah. So getting the combination of the small exposed tire plus all the gadgets like the ride modes and everything, but then having the traditional Indian bags only happened in 2019.
Huh. There you go. Yeah. But I've said it before, and I really want to get an old Road King and just deck it out. Oh, yeah. Just get like an S&S crate motor.
Yeah.
Like buy one that I'm being very patient and like always keeping a vigilant eye out for one that's like not like wrecked, but just like blown engine.
Right.
Like, hey,
we're just
trying to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. I want a 1997 just because that's the year I was born.
Oh,
and
that's
just
cool.
like go balls to the walls, like
totally custom.
Yeah, like get custom paint job and not custom engine, but like, engine work and have it be the show bike. You know, that would be number one for me.
I saw a company that was making, I don't know, you call it the back ends, but they basically were making your back fender and your bags as one complete
thing. Is
thing.
that like the sweeping?
Yeah,
low
where
ones?
it comes down real low.
Dude,
and
I would
exhaust goes through
destroy
it.
those things. You go through like one
No, it's a
speed
show
bump
bike.
and it's like
Definitely not a touring option at all, but they look cool. And like that's the kind of stuff that I think Harley they have over Indian. If you want anything close to that on Indian, you're custom fabricating it. There's nobody doing
You
that.
can't buy that.
No.
Yeah, what do you think? Have you seen much of these new bikes? I've seen quite a few of them actually on the road.
Oh yeah, the new road glides.
Oh yeah, if I had infinite money glitch, which
You'd
I
be
don't,
doing that.
it would be getting one of these new road glides. I think they look fantastic, and a 117 engine out of the box. Like I'd probably just switch the pipes and
Be good to go.
see. And from what I've feeling them from sitting on them, and then from what I've heard from all the people talking about them, these stock handlebars are so amazing that a lot of people
right
just
there.
don't change them
Yeah.
because right here with the triple tree, you can literally adjust them yourself on this model.
Nice.
Yeah, because the old model, it didn't have the electric. It had a infotainment screen, but it was not like your gauges or anything. But the gauges sat right here on top of your bars.
Yep.
So you had to remove those to get to that.
Yep.
But now you can literally just like loosen them and like, okay,
Just put them wherever you want.
that's where I want them. That's where I want them. And then you're good. And they're not super tall and they're not super short. Like they're a good option for a lot of people.
That's the bike that I feel like Harley's really that one. And we were talking about the Nightster, whatever it was earlier, but I feel like this one has had a lot of changes to it.
Oh yeah.
That happened. And this could be coincidence, or I could just be, looking at it through the Indian glasses. But I feel like the changes to this bike happened when the Challenger started getting popular.
Oh,
the
yes.
Challenger had
100%.
the same thing. It had that big touchscreen with no analog gauges in front of it. And, a couple years later, Harley comes out with a better version. They have a bigger screen. It's more vibrant. So that competition works
100%.
for everybody.
There's no way. I don't like when people are like, well, the new Road Glide is just a Challenger fairing, or like it looks too close or whatever. And I'm like, well, I mean, the Road Glide's older.
Yeah. If
So,
anything, the Challenger's a Road Glide.
Like, how can you copy the copy of you?
Right.
I think they look enough different that it's not an issue. But
it's cool that they're forcing each other to redesign and make it newer and make it better.
I would not be surprised in the slightest in the next 3-4 years that the Challenger gets a little facelift.
Oh, for sure.
Because how long have they had? I mean,
A couple years now.
5 years?
It came out in 2020 or 2021, I thought.
Yeah. So, I mean,
It'll be due for one in a little bit.
it's got to be. And I think even if it would have lasted longer, it's the fact that Harley's now done it that they're probably going to have to
They're going to have to, yeah. Harley's going to force their hand the same way that Indian force Harley's hand.
Yeah. So the Road Glide, I would say Road Glide over Street Glide for me, even though I am a Batwing fairing rider right now. I've test ridden a couple of these and they're just so smooth. They're easy to maneuver. They're amazing.
Have you ever spent a lot of time owned a bike that was just completely open, no fairing at all?
I mean, the FC09 had nothing.
Okay.
And then Yeah, the Fury didn't have anything either.
That's true. The Fury. There you go. That
Yeah,
was
so
another one.
they didn't really have any wind protection, and I didn't even realize how much I would love it. Like when you have no wind protection, you don't even think about it, but then when you
get
do,
it.
you're like, oh my gosh. Does the Indian Springfield Dark Horse, does it have any sort of removable?
So yeah, they give you they have an option for a quick detach windshield.
Okay.
So which I did buy because when I was buying it in Wisconsin and riding it back, I knew I was going to want some wind protection.
Worth
so I bought the windshield. They put it on. I rode it back, and then I bought an aftermarket one from Freedom Shields. Shout out to Freedom Shields. They are amazing. They kind of goofed up my order and totally just replaced it for me for free.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they're amazing. So
Customer
now,
service is awesome.
so good. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of them now. I tell everybody buy Freedom, but yeah, I'll throw that on if I'm going on a long trip now, and it's a short one. Like I can still see over the top of it, but it's flared, so it's great.
Yeah, that's what I have. Not too tall, but I like the flare. Like it makes it so you don't need as tall of a one, but still get like the similar protection.
Yep.
So let's see. I'm gonna assume there's a price increase for the Dark Horse over the other models.
Probably. I mean, you're already getting up to $27,000.
$27,000, and
getting into
then
some expensive bikes.
I mean, the new Street Glides. See, this is one thing that I really want to hit. Is I'll listen to people on the internet and people on podcasts, and they'll be like, "Oh, Harley is being so stingy with their bikes, and the Street Glide and the Road Glide are $26,000, and this, that, and the other." And back in the late 90s, you could have bought the same bike for 16, 17 grand, and it's just so unfair, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whoa. Those are not even close to the same bike. I mean, you have a screen, you have a twice as large engine, you have just anything under the sun that you could ever want on that old bike is on this new bike.
Right.
Like things you wouldn't even have imagined.
Right.
So, and I think I even, one day I was so annoyed with it because I was watching all these videos and it was when they first got released, and they're like, oh, it's such a high price tag. And I typed it in on one of those inflation calculators, and it was actually cheaper to buy the new one.
Really? Than what the price would have been back then?
So if you took like the 16, 17 grand or whatever it was back in the late 90s, and you converted, accounted for inflation, it was like 30 grand.
That's
I'm like,
funny.
Okay.
Shut up, guys.
So it literally doesn't matter.
Yep.
They've gone down in price, and they have way more technology.
Way more for way less.
So I think they're an amazing price for what you're getting. I mean, you're getting a premier brand, American made, huge in performance, and the brand new body style. Like there's nothing more you could ask for that bike.
No, it's a good looking bike.
So I like both of them. I think they did justice to their fairing styling between the Street Glide and the Road Glide, with kind of bringing it into the new age. But I mean, that's my opinion of it. I think I would go Road Glide over Street Glide. Yeah. Which is really hard because I am really used to the fork mounted.
Or the fork mounted.
Yeah.
That first bike that I had, that old Honda CB, was a frame mounted fairing, and you could read a book on the highway. That thing just such good wind protection. It was a massive. It was, what do they call them? They call them a wind jammer. Is the name of the fairing that was on those old Hondas, and it was like a water buffalo. It was a huge fairing.
On which model?
The Honda CB. If you look up Honda CB 900 and then check out that fairing, it was such a big fairing. Custom. Yep, right there. So that thing.
Like this?
Yep. That was the fairing I had on mine, and it was like, again, you could put a book and open it up, and the pages wouldn't even get turned by the wind because the wind, you were so well protected. Huh. It was crazy.
You wouldn't expect, and you said it was a 98?
Mine was a 1981.
81. Okay.
It was an 81. Yep. It looked, when I first got it, I thought it was a cop bike at first, to be honest.
Oh,
like,
really?
It was such a big fairing. I was like, is this a cop bike? And he's like, no. But it was big and ugly. And so since then, I've liked the open bike style. And that's why I like the Springfield, because if I'm cruising up here to Brigham, I don't need the windshield for that. Right. I get the open air and I'm good to go. But if I'm going to do a big, like we just did, my brother and I just did a trip up to Jackson a couple weeks ago. And we went up there and did Teton National Park and had fun. throw the windshield on that for sure, because after 4 days you get kind of fatigued, and it's nice having the wind protection.
Yeah.
But I like the flexibility.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to Indian versus Harley on the high end with the baggers, I mean 26.5, 25.9.
Yeah, your sixes at that point.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to preferences. Because maybe one sports a little more horsepower and the other one sports a little more torque or whatever. Because let's see what we got here. I mean, on the Indian, you got 122 horsepower and 128, and I think they do come standard with higher horsepower and torque ratings on the Indians, just because,
but not by much.
Not by much, and just because the way they're tuned, and that they're like, because you said that they added the liquid cooled onto the Challenger,
right? And that's why they're getting the higher horsepower and torque, because it's liquid cooled, and you're going to get more out of that than you are out of a normal air cooled engine.
Yeah, so I mean, on the stock 117, on the Road Glide and Street Glide, you're getting 130 foot-pounds of torque and 105 horsepower. That was one thing when I did test ride the Springfield and the Chieftain. I felt like the low-end torque wasn't as there. It was like you had to rev higher in order to get the power.
To get to it.
So I was super nervous because I was making a U-turn, and I felt like I wasn't, because I'm used to how mine does. I just rev it a little bit and I just kind of crawl.
And you just roll off.
Yeah. And then that one I was like slowing down, and I'm like giving it some gas, and it's still not moving. I'm like, more. Oh crap. Like I thought I was gonna.
New bikes take a little getting used to.
I thought I was gonna have to like put my foot down. You know, I was like, gosh, this is not what I'm used to. But I mean, amazing sound on them. I think the one I was riding was used and it had Tab Performance Zombies on it.
Ooh, the loud pipes.
Yeah, it was nice. And these
Does your
ones,
bike have loud pipes? Do you like loud pipes?
I don't. I do like louder pipes.
Okay.
So I have Reinhardt.
Oh yeah, me too.
And for a minute there, I took the baffles out, and it was like uber duper loud. And then I just was like, if I want loud pipes, I need to do it the right way and not just take the baffles out. So I threw the baffles back in, and I think it was also like it was. I didn't tune it or anything, and I did that, so it probably was getting crappier performance.
Sure.
And when I would ride with people, I think it was like blowing their ears off.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a good loud. It was just loud.
That's fair.
So I threw those back in. But these
overall, loud pipes you're cool with.
Oh nice. Yeah. I'm not against them. But these new ones, I think they're relatively quiet, but they have like the EPA.
Oh gosh,
choking them.
Every time you get a bike right off the lot from any dealership, they've just got their hands tied, from these stupid organizations.
They got the catalytic converter and the pipe, and and well, that's what sucks, because I was talking to Weston about it last week, and there's not much they can do about it at dealers. Like, and you're like voiding warranty and stuff if you put
your own stuff on it.
Yeah, so
it's dumb because, like, let's be real, we all know bikers are going to change the exhaust anyway. 100%. Like, you're not stopping it from happening. You're just stopping it from happening at the dealership. That's all you're doing.
Only states like California where they actually inspect your bike and like check for that. Like, we don't inspect bikes here, I don't think, right?
Nope.
I've never gotten my bike inspected.
I never have either.
They've never been like, hey, where's your stock pipes? But I mean, I've got stock heads, but like head pipes. But I don't think
slip-ons.
I think mine's old. Yeah, it's just slip-ons. But I think mine's old enough. It doesn't have the catalytic converter in the head pipe.
Nice.
Because like right here, that like bulge where it comes 2 into 1, and then there's like a pipe underneath.
Yep.
But like this bulge right
side
here, that is the catalytic converter.
I've thought about doing a cat delete on my bike. I've heard that it makes them run less hot and supposed to run smoother. I don't play around with metal.
You just have slip-ons.
Yeah. I had them put the dang it, I don't even remember the name of the tips. I was so mad when I found out that when you buy Reinhardt, you have to buy the pipe, but then you also have to pick what tip you want on the end.
Oh, really?
And that's sold separately. So like I upgraded.
Wait, like the black tip on the end?
I've got, I think they call it the Castle tips or something like that. But like the way the last like 4 inches of metal is sold separately from the pipe, or at least on the Indians they were. So he was like, "Do you want
so
this
weird.
tip? Do you want this tip? Or do you want this tip?" And it changes the sound based on how they've got the stuff cut out on the tips.
Huh. Well, I mean, I bought mine used, so
Gotcha.
which I got mine for like $75 from Tucker Speed. They had a bunch of like used parts that they pulled off bikes and then they put their parts on. And so they were just selling all these used parts that were like brand new.
Screaming deal.
Yeah, $75, and I think they're like $500 or something.
Yeah, I dropped probably close to $1,000 on my exhaust.
you can't get cheaper than that.
No,
so
you got it for free.
yeah.
Good find.
Yeah.
Good. And that's what I'm talking about. Like that, I hear those way more from Harley guys than I ever do from Indians.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
you're not going
'cause
to
people are
find
constantly
a used
upgrading.
part. Yeah.
It's like, well, I had an upgrade, but then I upgraded on top of that. And so I'm getting rid of my old
So I'm
one
selling my real upgrade.
to help pay for the next one.
Yep.
It's like, well, it's not actually $700. It's $500 because I got $200 back from the last
Credit.
ones I spent $500.
On my upgrade credit.
Yes.
Yep. What cracks me up is whenever you find somebody who's selling their bike and they go, "Well, I have $2,000 of upgrades on this bike." And you find out that nobody cares. When you're selling it in the private market, no one cares.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm like, we'll see what I get out of mine if I sell it one day. Because, I mean, I've spent a lot of money getting it to look the way I want it to look. But
But it's the way you want it to look.
Exactly. Because like when I bought it, it had all these, I think they call it billet style.
Yeah.
With like where it's black and then it has the kind of chrome cut into it. And I hated it. I was like, I got to get rid of all this stuff. And so I took it all off. I sold it and bought all Kahuna Collection chrome parts. And that's just my style.
Yep.
So like, who's to say the next guy
isn't going to sell those and put the billets back on?
Exactly. So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of the lowdown. I mean, other than that, I mean, the only other difference would be the Harley Davidson Pan America, which Indian has
nothing to compare that to.
Do you think they will?
I think they're leaning into the FTRs. They're getting a lot of traction. Like I said, I feel like they're seeing a lot of cruiser guys that are, not normally Indians' market share. They're catching some of those sport riders with the FTR. And I'm not a CEO of Indian. I'm not even involved in them. But if I was them, I would lean into that because they seem to be getting good traction with that. I've talked to a lot of guys who said the only reason they bought an Indian was because of the FTR and because of the riding position, and they're popping wheelies on them left and right, and just it's as close as Indian's going to get to a sport bike.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to say that Indian should make something off-roady. But at the same time, the second they did, it'd be like, well, it's just a Pan America copy. Well, just a copy. Well, does Polaris make like an off-road dirt bike?
Oh, Polaris has got 1,000 off-road stuff. They've got side-by-sides, four-wheelers. They've got the little, what are they called?
I mean, maybe they could make a really good one with all that experience.
Oh, they would make one in a heartbeat. That's why that 108 liquid-cooled engine is so awesome, is because that was 100% Polaris. That wasn't Indian at all. So I think when it comes to the off-road, and I didn't even think about this till just now, but I'm willing to bet when they go to off-road, they're just letting Polaris sell the Polaris off-road stuff, because Polaris makes sleds, they make dirt bikes, they make all that stuff.
There's no reason for them.
There's no reason to try to sell an Indian.
Yeah, it's the same thing as why they shut down Victory. They just were competing with themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're competing with themselves. Yep. So they'll probably not do that. They'll probably just lean into what makes them Indian.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, you've opened my eyes. We're gonna have to go for a ride and go test drive some stuff. One day we'll just go hit up Indian, hit up Harley. You can try some Harleys. I can try some Indians. It'll be a good time.
Yep, that sounds like a good time. And I think it's way cool if you keep doing this podcast and getting people like next thing, you need to get a Victory guy up here. You need to get a Triumph rider in here, because I don't know about those brands. Yeah. But if you had an episode on Triumph, I'd watch that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about Triumphs.
Yeah, me neither. I know they make a really, really big bike that'll take off without you. That 3000 one that they have.
Was that Rocket or something? Triumph
looks
Rocket.
Cool. Be too scared to sit on it, but it looks cool.
Yeah. Reminds me of like the Boss Haas.
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
Yes.
I don't even know how big they are, but they got like a V8.
It's something ridiculous. I heard they had to take 2 gas tanks and cut them down the middle and then weld them on the sides of the other ones so that they feed into the center one, because it just uses so much gas.
Are they built out of a Harley?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just seen a couple of videos where people go, "This is my review of the Boss Haas," and you look at them the whole time, and like when it's from the camera, like the GoPro on people's chin mounts, the bike is like almost as wide as the whole field of vision. It's just a huge bike.
Oh, it's freaking enormous.
It's a joke.
Well, and I've heard that it almost like pulls to one side just because of how much torque it's putting out.
See, that like that's
it's literally
a joke.
like
That's just a joke. Let's be real. Like no one's gonna safely drive that anywhere. That's built for one line, straight line.
You're not touring on that thing.
No. You're going out to the salt flats and you're making everybody else cry. That's what you're doing.
Or laugh.
Or laugh. Yeah.
Well, cool. I've had a lot of fun. This was a good time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, anytime, dude. I'm sure that we'll see you again, and grateful for. Where'd you ride out from?
Centerville.
Okay, so not super far, but
It took me a little bit longer with traffic.
Yeah,
we'll pick a different time of the day next time, just because of rush hour and the heat was gnarly.
Oh
but
man,
nah, like when you said that you were getting a podcast of the biker community in Utah and everybody's just pulling together and lending experience and perspective and stories, it was like that's cool. Like anything you can to support that.
Yeah, I'm hoping it goes somewhere. Just not even for the pure fact of it going, but just so it's more fun.
Yeah.
I mean, the more people we can have on, the more variety of experience, the better.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
well, and for guys, like me who don't have necessarily, I mean, now I have a fairly decent network of riders because I've been doing it for so long. But when I was starting out, I had zero. I didn't even, like I said, didn't even know that bikes have a different range gas wise than cars did, and I ended up stranded on the side of I-15. So there could be some new riders who are getting into it who just don't know those things, and if they're listening to this, then all the better.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, thank you. We're gonna sign off for now. Did you want to share like social medias or at all?
I'm not on social media. I'm not cool for that.
No, you're too cool for that.
I'm not cool enough for that. I stay away from it.
Sometimes I wish it wasn't such a necessary evil for like any sort of business or any sort of, like with the podcast. Like obviously nothing would happen without
you need
it.
that.
But like there's days when I get on social media, I'm like, ugh, can I just delete everything and get away from it?
Right.
So.
Yeah, don't worry about trying to find me online. I go out of my way to not be found. But
at least you're on Discord.
I'm on Discord and I'm on Facebook. Facebook's how I keep up with the aunts and the uncles.
There you go. So, family and friends.
Yep. Only message from me is ride safe, keep rubber side down, have fun.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.